to be able to have access to ground, that's a lost art in and of itself when you're talking permission.
Yes.
You kind of gave the key up there. It's those long time relationships. That's,
You got to always be nice to everybody in school because you never know.
That's right. For 30 years later,
That's right.
It might come back to haunt you. Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, brought to you by DeerCast. I'm Matt Drury, your host. We are Timless again this week, but I have a special in-studio guest. We have Mr. Kelly Turner, cast member of Critical Mass, longtime Drury Outdoors team member. Kelly, what's up?
Not much, man. Just glad to be here.
Yeah, so you're over here shooting interviews for Critical Mass, and I shot up one of these with Mark Beck the other day too, because it's perfect to have you guys in studio. It's always a lot nicer to do these podcasts this way than doing the Zoom guests.
Yes, right.
So for anybody that may not know who you are, haven't followed along on the Critical Mass side, so you're in the Southern Illinois region,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
And obviously been bow hunting for a long time, and you're kind of a self-proclaimed the average guy out there do permission pieces or
Yes,
a lease, or you got a job that you work tons of hours, so it's always tough to get off. It's always that's kind of always the theme, it feels like, from year to year, right?
Yes.
So I figured we'd kind of dive into a little bit of your approach when you go into a season. I know you have specific farms that you're hunting, but it's a limited amount of time to go hunt.
For sure.
So that's what I want to dive into a little bit. And when you talk about like scouting or your preseason prep, your off-season prep, what's it look like for you as you're putting your strategy together, and because you killed some great deer over the years, as you're putting your strategy together, what's your number one focus as you head into a season? In the off-season, what's your number one priority?
Well, for me, just as much as any other diehard deer hunter, season just never ends. It's all the time. We're riding around looking for deer. We're looking for new land to hunt. We're asking for permission. I've got lots of farms, lots and lots that are just permission farms because, of course, I hunt where I grew up my whole life. So
yeah.
I'm 46 years old. All the farmers now are my buddies that I went to school with. So that's very beneficial. And we're just anytime we can fit it in. As far as work schedule, we just have to plan our days. Sometimes the weather gets us, sometimes it don't. I call up buddies to help, and it might be next Tuesday, we've got to spray this food plot. I need you to help me so we can get it done quick. And then it rains. Then it might be the next week. Then the next week. It's just work gets in the way of fun.
To be able to have access to ground, that's a lost art in and of itself when you're talking permission.
Yes.
But you kind of gave the key up there. It's those long time relationships. Mm-hmm. There's nothing beats a foot in the door.
That's right. You got to always be nice to everybody in school because you never know.
That's right. For 30 years later,
That's right.
It might come back to haunt you.
That's right.
So that's nice to have that ability, because it typically, what I've noticed, and I said this, I was kind of lamenting after last year's season, had a tough season, so 2 seasons ago, and Mark's like, I do a couple things. I would try to find more ground, and put more cameras out. And it's like, oh, that's easy for you to say. He's got access to a ton of ground. Right. And it's tough to, even if you're willing to pay for the leases, it's tough to find dirt to lease. So having permission ground, it makes me think of that strategy. I picked up another lease this past off season, and it helped me tremendously because it gave us one more option. So as we're monitoring the farms, it's like, okay, I got one deer here and one deer on this other farm. And so then I'm paying attention to those cameras, like, all right, this deer, we're going to make a move on him. He's visible right now. We're going to make a move on him. Is that similar for you, or when you have several options, what's the strategy of which farm you're going to go hunt?
That's what you said is basically everything for us. We ride around a lot. I put lots and lots of miles on a truck because I might find a deer where I don't have permission, but there's a very good chance I know that person. So, if it's not a leased farm or anything like that, I never hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
I just go ask them. That's how most of the deer, yes, the farms that we do own or lease, we do have good deer on those farms, but I might find a better one. You know what I mean? Riding around, looking in the cornfields, bean fields, whatever. I might find a better deer. and I'll just go ask. I mean, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lost art too, just going up to somebody's door and knocking on the door.
Right.
Yeah, you know, which some people, man, it's tough because anymore, people, it's like they might be right in front of their phone and see that you call, ignore it, and then you text them and they answer right away.
Yes,
it's kind of that mentality, right? Like, who the hell's at my door? Like, I don't answer the door for anybody. And so that's tough. But like you said, I guess you never know until you go start knocking.
No, a lot of my buddies that are farmers, I mean, they have leased their ground whenever that started getting big.
Yeah.
And have had bad experiences and just said, you know what, heck with it. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's beneficial for me.
And that's a shame. It's sure, absolutely. And it's a real shame because that's one of the things when you're leasing somebody's dirt, it doesn't take much effort to be a good steward of their land. Right. You know, and you see, you know, not leave any trash, not, you know, whatever, go cutting trees down and trimming trees that they didn't want you to, just asking and being upfront or helping, you know, pitch in, doing something around the farm. You need any help with anything. Yeah. And that stuff goes a long way. Yeah.
Our big lease that we have, I take care of all that. I mean, I mow spots that I said, is there anything that I can't do?
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't care. I'm like, well, I want to do less work. Make it for you all have to do less work. You can worry about farming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I mow myself around all their fields. I mow all their roads. I've made new roads to new spots that benefit me in the hunting part of it, as well as them just traveling through the farm.
And is this a permission piece, this farm?
Is a lease.
A lease, yeah. But either way, I mean, regardless, being able to keep a lease is very important too. Yes. So you want to keep those people happy.
That's right.
You know, so I was going to say, if it was a permission piece, that if you think about it, even putting the hours and the work in, you're still money ahead in that regard, doing the work for them and, you know, having that access.
Yeah, kind of an example. I mean, back years ago, probably in the 90s, there was this old man that owned a farm that it was just known in the area. He's not going to let anybody hunt. It ain't going to happen. He will not let you hunt. Well, one day I'm driving by there and I see a deer out in his bean field, and this deer was in the 190s for sure. And I look in his yard, and there's a tree laying down in his yard. So I pulled up there and I'm like, now's my time. So I pulled up there and talked to him, and he was one of the nicest guys ever.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was scared to death because of, you know, his reputation. Well, I cut that tree up for him, stacked it up by his barn. It wasn't a big tree. It didn't take me all week. So, then I got permission to hunted it for 3 years. Then he passed away. But I actually had a chance of that deer.
Really?
The first day I hunted it and messed it up. So
that burns.
Yeah, it happens.
Those are the lessons that you live with you for a long time.
That's a fact.
I've had many. Just about every year you get about 5 of them, it feels like. So last year, I think it was last year. No, it was the year before. You had a hunt that I loved it because I think it was the year before. You had created a ground blind. It was a muzzleloader season, maybe one of those Illinois gun seasons, shotgun seasons.
I do that all the time.
And you killed on this one, so that's why I remember.
It was probably a crossbow. I think it was a mission crossbow.
That's what it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just made a makeshift blind right there on the ground and crossbow kill, boom, right there. Deer walk. Yeah, self-film, the whole, and that's just that alone is hard. The self-filming part.
Yeah.
What makes you elect to go on the ground in that instance versus hang a single set, you know, a lock on?
Well, that was that situation was kind of a tree row, just a brush row in between 2 fields. So there wasn't good. If I was going to have a tree stand, it was going to be 20 yards off the field edge.
Yeah.
It was the best trees, and the rest of it was just brush and Russian olives and stuff like that. So I don't hesitate 1 second to build anywhere. I don't care where. If it's in the woods and I can put a tree stand, if I have a good log pile or a down tree or something like that, it don't bother me. I'll sit right in there and camo up, sit still, and I've done it my whole life.
I know. We had Zach Plale, similar to that. Zach Plale last year, he had a kill where it was a 170-something inch deer. He hit this deer a little forward or a little low with his bow from a tree stand. And so all season long, he's after the same deer over and over. It just aired on Natural Born, which is why I'm thinking of it. Well, anyways, he got to the gun season, And he's like, screw it. I'm going to go sit on the side of a hillside in the timber against a tree. And he set up his camera and, trying to do all the self-filming, and the deer comes from behind him. And, he's trying to wind the camera around. He's winding his body around to get the shot.
Right.
And he hits him and he kills, he ends up finding the deer and all that good stuff. And I think, like, how hard is it? Like, it's hard enough to just be hunting. Like, how hard is it? That deer, it's a hunt, Boone and Crockett caliber animal.
Right.
It's coming in from behind him. He's already it's hard enough to make the shot and get, do what he needs to do and keep thinking clearly. But he's also thinking about his camera,
Right.
putting the camera back around him. Once he shoots the deer, it runs off. He then grabs the camera and it's on one of those muddy arms.
Right.
He's trying to reposition it to get it on the butt. It's like, what a pain in the butt.
Oh, it's tough. I don't pay a cameraman. I got my best friend Ralph Myers. He usually films me, but I've had other people film me too. But
Yeah.
he owns a heating and air business, so not all the time he can go. So if I have to self-film, I have to self-film. I don't like it. I prefer self-filming on the ground because it's easier to me.
Or tripod.
Yeah, it's all right there. I hate, one thing I hate, and this is probably petty, but when it gets dark, I cannot stand taking that camera arm down and putting all that. I mean, it takes me forever.
Yeah.
And of course, I use those Rogue Ridge bikes religiously. And when if deer's in the field, I'm on the ground. I don't have to worry about them seeing me take it down. I don't have to worry about hearing me climb down anything. I could just fold the tripod up, grab my bow or crossbow, and
jump on the bike and get out of there.
I'm gone.
That is the beauty of those. We've talked about on the podcast quite a bit because we used them a lot, especially last season. Scott and I were using it a lot. Just being able to go straight to your spot and lay the bike down, and they don't care about it. I mean, I do put a limb or two or some leaves on top, a stick. I don't know if it makes any difference, but they don't seem to give two shits about it.
No,
at all.
No, I take some stands are in the timber. But any stand that I have, as soon as I scout a spot, like I'm scouting really right now, after season. So as soon as I find a spot, I found several new ones already this year looking for sheds. But I will hang a set and I'll go cut a tree down, cedar trees down.
Put it
and
next
I'll
to it.
drag them up there with the bike and I'll lay it right at the base of the tree. Literally, we ride in there together, lay the bikes down, drag the trees over the bikes and up the tree.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's quick.
Oh, it's great.
The
It's
quiet
incredible.
part is obvious, but it's quick is the part I like the most about it. And I of course have hunted out of the tree stand setups and drove up to the tree stands, but we hunt out of a lot of blinds, a lot of box blinds. And so the one thing that I was telling Scott at the end of the season, it's like we'd park over near the timber and then we'd walk over to the blind. I'm like, we're idiots. We should have just did exactly what you're saying and have it under the blind and or next to the blind, tie it next to the blind so it stays there or whatever.
Right.
And they wouldn't have thought anything of it, of us just driving up, putting the bikes over and putting the cedar limbs right over the top of the bikes.
No, I mean, the deer they're not that smart. Everybody thinks they're smart. I mean, they just
make
wary.
us look dumb.
Everything wants to eat them, everything wants to kill them. Everyone, but I don't think most deer are smart enough to tell that the legs of that box blind are different. I mean, I don't think they can.
And I often think of it to them as just another piece of equipment sitting like it's laying over like
That's right.
The difference of now, like when we have the Tracker EV and it's like a side by side, that's a different thing.
Different.
It's a different animal. It's it stands out. It wasn't there, yesterday and it's there today. But when you have a bike, you're just laying it over. They don't pay any attention to it.
Nope.
So I'm with you on that one. So what's one tip that the style of hunting that you have, something that you go back to and it's like a tried and true for you, or something you always go to? It's like, hey, if I do this, 9 times out of 10 this helps lead to success for me. Is there something that's like this, you're talking about scouting this time of year, that's obviously always great to be working this time of year for next season, but is there something else that is your go-to move?
Probably just the best tip I could give anybody is just stay out. Just stay out.
That's the hard one.
I scout right now and I stay out. Like if I find a bunch of big rubs, a lot of times I'll put a camera up with the
solar panel. Yes, you don't have to go back in
on that spot.
Yeah.
And I will never go back. And I'll take that camera down next year.
Yeah.
Whenever I go scouting or looking for sheds again. But just stay out. That's what I run. Cell cameras pretty much exclusively now. and those things are they kill
Game
every deer
changer.
on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll find a deer, and yeah, I might get their picture. The deer I'm after, I might get his picture every 24 hours at night, all the time. Of course, as soon as they daylight, I'm in.
Yeah.
It's killing them all.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's one of those things where you see where people, like some of the states are banning them.
Yeah.
And mostly Western stuff. And I get like what's going on there. People are putting them on water holes, and there's like 20 cameras on a water hole. And I get it in that instance, but I've also had plenty of pictures. I think it's a difference of how good of a hunter you probably are, but I've had plenty of pictures, and we moved on intel, he went to bed late this morning, it was right at 7 a.m. And I think he's going to pop back out here tonight, so I'm going to be in this spot and ready for him, and they're still freaking wild animals, and
That's right.
get up and move wherever the hell they want to move.
That's right.
And
I mean, in the years past,
it does help a lot for
Yes.
sure, but I've certainly got a ton of intel and not killed a deer because of it.
that's for sure. I mean, in the years past, of course, we always had to run cards, and I mean, who can run them all the time? You'll run the whole farm, and then by the time you do get the information, that's old. That's old. It's over.
Mark talks about that all the time.
Look at it next year, which
That's
they
right.
will by the date almost within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Be like, this deer's, I never seen this deer. He's here on October the 25th. Well, next year, you better look around that time. He'll be back.
It is crazy. Had that happen to me this season on a pretty big deer. We weren't even hunting the deer, didn't even think about the deer. That's one of those things where Mark and Terry, they remember that stuff, and they're in there on that deer, just the chance he's going to show back up. We're just hunting and maybe, a different deer that we were after. And then, oh boy, here's this deer that we hadn't seen in a year. Start going back through the pictures. It's like, shit, he showed up here 3 days before that last year, the same time.
Yep.
And only that one day,
Yep.
and so we just so happened, got lucky, and we were there, right place, right time. He came within 50, but I didn't feel comfortable with taking a 50-yard shot with my compound, so I didn't. But
Right.
man, then we hunted it every day for the next 9 days and probably screwed that spot up. It was over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good feedback. Back when we were running regular cameras and you'd have to go in and check them, the frustrating part about that for me was always during, it's like during the rut, you're probably in and around your spot, so you could check them a little more easy. But man, like the early season or the late season, we're just not there a lot. And it's like, oh, great. I missed that. That deer was here. So from that perspective, yes, the cell cams definitely have helped improve it, because it's like, okay, we're going tonight. We have a picture this morning, or, 3 a.m. Like, let's go in there. But still, I don't know how much it's actually increased it has increased the odds. I don't know like what percentage you would attest to it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I would say every deer I've killed probably since 2015 has been because of them.
So you're waiting until what kind of, to you, what's daylight? Is it, hey, he went to bed here? Or it's like, hey, he's not moving. He's changed his pattern. He's moving, 4 p.m., 3:30 p.m. or whatever. And so we're going to go in.
Yeah. And most of the spots that I've hunted for a long time. So I know particular does that come in at different times. Like I know the deer. Like, I mean, that deer, with a white spot or big white spot on her neck, don't shoot her. She comes in October,
That's next level.
And I
can't remember every doe.
And I don't remember all of them, but I have, and it's usually in some certain spots.
Yeah.
And I have cameras there, and I run those cameras, check them all the time. I mean, as soon as a deer daylights, I'm in there.
So is it mostly a certain time of the season? Meaning, this is the rut you're talking about, doe coming in. So you're talking rut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my job in October, which is my favorite time to hunt a specific deer.
Yeah.
Our plant has a shutdown, so October is out for me. We have to do all the maintenance and stuff, and so it's basically starts the second week of October and goes till November till my vacation starts, and then.
That sucks.
Yeah. I miss all those magical October cold fronts. I don't get to hunt them.
Yeah. So you're really honing in on your rut strategy.
Yes.
Do you do much late season stuff?
If I have a deer, I mean, a lot of times they get broke up, but if I have one, yes, I do.
So basically, hey, if it made it through the rut, made it through a gun season, you know, the first year in Illinois. So first gun probably wipes a lot of deer out. If it makes it through that, it's like, okay, I can get back into a strategy late season here.
Yep. I always have food. You know, I leave food for them so they make it through season. It just all depends on what I have. I mean, a lot of times I've killed a few deer in late season, but I'm a November guy when I take my vacation.
Yeah. Are you doing a lot of food plot work then? I mean, I understand like Illinois, especially corn and beans and a lot of beans, it seems like over there. And that's a lot of food plot. When I hunt in Illinois with my buddy Chase, food plot strategy, a lot of times, I mean, he has some green plots, but it's like, hey, we left a little bit of standing beans here, a little, and this covey over here, and you know, it's not exactly like what I'm accustomed to when I think food plot strategy at Mark or Terry's or my place, right?
Well, yeah, both of the farms that we own are no crops. I mean, one of them's 80 acres and one of them's 70, and one's in CRP and one actually has some horses on it, so some hay ground. So food plots, I definitely have them there. Clover. I like that non-typical clover.
Yeah, hard to beat it.
It's hard to beat it.
It really is.
But I do have green plots on our big lease, it's like 1,300 acres. So, but it's corn and beans. You know, it has both on it every year. So, not just one or the other. But I do plant radishes and stuff like that. I mean, if I have a deer that I see in October, you know, I see daylight in October some, I'll throw radishes, make sure to throw radishes in the spot where he's at. Mm-hmm. I've done that, and he got hit by a car. But anyway, so that was a waste of time. But I do have some clover plots on that big farm and some brassica stuff too.
Do you notice, I mean, is it the same for you where it seems like the deer in Illinois don't seem to care about green quite as much as they do grain? Meaning, like, it seems to me like they'll walk right through a green plot on a warm day. It doesn't matter. Like temperature, you always think cold day, they'll go to grain, warm day, they'll go to green. Like, doesn't seem to matter. They'll just prefer the grain source over there. Is that your experience?
Yeah. I stick with clover or oats. The deer like those. Now, I don't know something about our deer in Southern Illinois. Like I see Mark and Terry, killing deer in brassicas and stuff. Listen, I don't think a Southern Illinois deer even knows what that is.
Yeah.
They will. I've never had, like in February, they'll demolish it to bare dirt. But as far as the hunting season, I've never had a deer eat them.
Yeah.
Ever. It makes you feel good about yourself because they'll grow on concrete.
They're big.
Yeah.
I think I've had more success with clover than anything. Yeah. It's like they just seem to gravitate, and maybe it's because it's been so much warmer in the last 5 or so years. We have warm falls, and maybe the clover, like you think radish, or you think about turnips and stuff like that. I think more of a late season. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're saying, February they demolish it. That happened to me several times at my lease in Ellsbury. It's like, God, we're planting this, but they aren't going to it until the end of the season. Yep. After the season, it does me no good.
Right.
I mean, it's great for the nutritional value and the herd health and all that, but the point of me putting it here is to try to kill something.
That's right.
So, yeah. Well, I think going into this year, you know, is there? I know off screen here, we talked about a little bit. So you got a couple that you're honing in on. Is there a strategy that you're starting to deploy now for a specific deer? And is it, yeah, all right, I'm hanging certain tree stands based on MRI from last season, or what's the thought process going into this year for these couple deer you're thinking about?
Yeah, one of the deer is a real big 10-pointer, and I actually put too much time on that deer this year. I got him on the southeast side of the big farm that we have, and I went one way where I looked at aerial photos and I thought, well, that deer is coming from this side to get here. It was all nighttime. Everything was nocturnal, all nighttime pictures. And so I'm like, he's daylighting somewhere, you know. So I look at the aerial photos and I think, well, the deer is this way. Well, he wasn't. He was this way. So I spent literally 3 weeks of hunting basically daylight to dark, trying to find some piece of the puzzle to put together on that deer, and I never did. The only daylight picture I have of the deer all year was the day after our second shotgun season. For some reason, he showed up in the daylight. But I had him one time.
Random.
Yeah, I had him one time where he was coming 30 minutes earlier. And I thought, I'm going to get him. And then actually had got pictures of a guy walking through the farm, and
Brutal.
The deer literally moved a mile just because of that person. The camera I was getting the deer on, person walked in front of it. I never got a picture of that deer again on that camera all year, even till he shed.
So moved a mile. How'd you even, just so happens you got a camera or somebody sighting or something, and
I just
like,
pull
holy
them.
shit.
I pull them. Once I find a deer I'm after, I'll go pull every I mean, that's what they're there for, right? I mean, deer hunting. So if I find a deer, that's what I try to do. I try to find one deer, and this is the deer I'm going. I'm going after that deer. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill that deer or bust. And so I'll pull all my cameras out of spots where I don't think he's at, and I'll just start moving them. I'll move them around,
Try to triangulate.
Yep, and I'll find them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help him daylight because he still never did.
So going into this year, different strategy or slightly different spots, or now he was over here and I was over there. Okay, I've got cameras over here.
I've kind of got a journal at home to where I know where he was at on certain times of the year throughout the year. I talked to some neighbors that own some land around there, and so I know where he shed last year and the year before on two different farms. So this deer he's going to be tough. I know he's going to be tough, but last year that whole farm was standing corn, and it just now, basically the end of February, they just shelled it. So I think the deer was living in the corn a lot, which helped him survive. So hopefully this year he will be a lot bigger and maybe more patternable.
How old?
I think the deer I think last year he was 5.5, so he'd be 6.5, and that's the guess.
Yeah,
I think that's a huge guess for me. I'm not good at that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he slips up for you.
I hope he's going to be a good one.
Then we'll do a follow-up podcast about what you did to kill him.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do that.
All right. So we're going to dive into some of the business part of the podcast. All right. So we got Matt, I'm going to skip over the real wild clip. I'm going to go straight to the question of the day. All right. So we got a question of the day today. It's brought to you by DruryOutdoors. And I want you to check out the Finisher Turkey Series built specifically for the avid turkey hunter. Now, by the time this airs, it might be after turkey season, but maybe you can get a deal on next year's gear. All right. So the question of the day, I don't know who this is from, but it says, who is your favorite turkey hunting partner? All right.
My turkey hunting is kind of my time. So it really is. No cameras.
Me.
I go. But I enjoy, my favorite turkey hunter is anybody that has never killed one. I love to take people turkey hunting.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. So you're a good turkey caller, mouth call, all that stuff. I can't. That's the part. When you go with somebody that's a great, can do the mouth call side of it. It's one thing to do the friction, not that hard to pick up on. Right. But man, going with Mark or Terry or Paul Butsky or these guys that can call, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I love it.
It changes the whole feeling of the hunt for the other person, right?
Right.
It's like to hear those vocalizations and then to see the game that happens from between the long beard and or the hens or whoever and the guy calling. It's a little chess match, right?
You can't beat it. Just getting somebody that might be new to hunting, or they might have hunted for a long time, they just never have had success on turkeys, to just set your decoys close or something and just get all them birds, get them strutting and drumming.
Spitting and drumming, yeah.
Right there in front of them, making them gobble when they're 10 feet from, watching their face. You can't beat that.
Hard to beat it.
I love it.
Yeah, that's one of those feelings where you hear it a lot from guys. It's like, I don't care about turkey, and I've been turkey hunting, don't really care about it. It's like, I bet they haven't had that kind of experience, right? Because once you have it, you pretty much you're hooked.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, we got the wildlife word. So every week we got usually Tim puts this together, but I think we're switching over to what one of our other guys is putting together for us. So every week he basically gives me some sort of like term or a word, and he gives me a multiple choice to figure out which one it is. So today's wildlife word is brought to you by Tracker Off-Road. All right, so it says, what is another name for a turkey's caruncles? Caruncles. A, the part that shall not be named. B, the wattle. C, the dewlap. D, the beard. I got my answer. What are you going to choose?
I'm going B, the wattle.
Same. B, the wattle. Producer Matt, what do we got?
You're both correct.
D, the wattle it is. Caruncle. I've not heard that.
No, I don't know that one.
Sounds like something I find in a rap video.
Yeah.
I'm crunk. All right. So we got shout outs this week from Apple Podcast, 5 stars from Cody Sudbeck. A good combo of laughs and info. Definitely my favorite podcast. Keep up the amazing work. That's a shout out to our Not Your Favorite Outdoor podcast that we like to make fun of ourselves. I'm sure you're probably a big fan of this podcast, Kelly.
I have watched it. Mm-hmm. I have watched it.
You'd be surprised how many team members we have on. Like, oh yeah,
hey,
I'm not a podcaster.
The Rack Pack.
Are you in there?
I am.
So then you got
That's
the
right.
joke then, because that was going to be the next question.
I am on there.
Because most of the team members are not. We always call them out right here. All right. So we don't have any new Rack Pack members this week, but Kelly's in there. You should be in there too. If you're not, go over to Facebook. It's a private Facebook group. Just type in 100% Wild Rack Pack and answer a couple questions, and you're in. It's a cool little community where we congratulate each other, make fun of each other, give Tim shit for being a saddle hunter.
There you go. Yeah.
Have you ever tried the saddle hunting?
Negative. Not going to.
I didn't know, because you're set up. You're a lone wolf, and that saddle hunting seems to be the go-to for a lone wolf.
Yeah, no.
Same. No desire. But I got the same desire to go hunt in Africa as I do to saddle hunt. It's zero.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So what's next for you?
Turkeys, of course.
Yep.
And then summertime, thankfully. I mean, I shouldn't say thankfully, but our kids are getting grown now, so no travel sports.
That's the thankful part.
That's right.
See, I'm
No
just starting to get
travel
into that side.
Yeah. So we have more time to fish and do stuff like that. And of course, always preparing for elk and deer and ready to rock.
That's probably a whole different pot. We should probably have you back just for the elk side, because I'm getting ready to go on an elk hunt, first archery elk hunt this September. So I got plenty of questions.
Yeah.
So do you usually archery, or is it?
Yeah, archery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite state? Or you just wherever you draw, wherever you just public land?
Yeah, public land.
Yeah, Colorado?
Colorado last year.
Yeah.
We used to hunt in Wyoming, but it's hard to get a tag there now, which is fine with me because the grizzly bears are absolutely everywhere.
Really?
Oh, it's terrible.
Pass.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So when you go to Colorado, like I've kind of heard mixed reviews on, especially like, I guess if you're going for that experience of, hey, you're backpacking in and you're going with some buddies, like that, it seems to me what I mostly hear from guys is that it doesn't matter if they kill, like it's just that experience of the hunt and something about it. And it's not always about the kill. And I always have a hard time thinking about it that way, because I think about the time and the effort and the time away from family and all that stuff. So for you, is that the style? Is that the style when you're going out there? It's like, hey, it's just a trip. It's experience.
100%. Yes. I just, it's different, growing up in Southern Illinois and not really going out. It's different. Everything's different. Animals are different. Birds are different. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I enjoy it. I'll enjoy packing in there, which it almost kills me to do it. But once I get back in there, we go miles and miles in there, everything for a week or 7 days in our backpack.
Yeah.
And we set up spike camp, or we might just leave everything on there, pack it up every morning and just follow the elk.
Huh.
I mean, just
how many guys are you going with?
Usually just 3, just me and 2 other ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would love to do it. I just don't know shit about it. Yeah, I've been, I'm going to go on a guided hunt with a couple buddies, and it's just not the same. I know it's not the same. Totally different level hunt.
Right.
That backpacking in, I know like Adam Anderson does a lot of times, and I'm always enthralled by his hunts. They're awesome. Mm-hmm. Bill Gadine and Dave Kramer, which they go on, that's a guided hunt. But I think they do a lot of packing in. It seems like they're riding, a horse somewhere, and that's just next level to me.
Oh, I love it. You'll love it when you do that. It's great.
Yeah, I went out to Utah a few years back, but that was to Austin Land's place. And I know I'm well aware that's just a different style hunting than what you guys are talking about. And it was awesome. I mean, I fell in love with elk hunting and having them rush up in your face and bugling. And, they're just a feeling like no other.
Yes.
Turkey hunting on steroids.
That's right.
But it kind of hooked me in at that point. I'm like, at some point, in my life, at least once, do an archery elk hunt. So that's what we're going to do.
Do it.
Already started working out, trying to get in shape, because I was a little fearful of being able to keep up.
It'll take a few days even if you're in tremendous shape. The few days of getting acclimated to that it's a game changer.
What kind of elevation are you going to in Colorado typically?
About 9,000.
See, I don't think I'm going to Idaho, McCall, Idaho area. I don't think it's that high up. I thought he said something like 5,000, 6,000.
Okay.
So it's not nearly like what you're talking about. So I don't know, if it'll be as bad to get acclimated to.
It'll
it or
be
not.
bad.
It'll
be bad.
Yeah. I can't remember at Austin's place. I kind of feel like that was 6,000 to 8,000. And that first day, I remember you get there Sunday, you can't hunt. And we went and just they wanted to get us acclimated, and they took us up to a spot to kind of look out and get the spotters out and all that. And I that night when I got back, I had the worst freaking headache, and all night couldn't sleep, just wanted to throw up from the headache.
Right.
And then once that went away, within a few hours that next day, didn't come back, but I guess that's the acclimation part of it.
Yep.
So, and I remember it wasn't that high up, just higher than I guess what we're used to here.
Right. Yeah. Flatlanders.
That's right. So, well, good luck out there.
Thank you. You too.
Let's follow back up on it. Good luck this fall.
For sure.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yep. Love to be here. Glad you had me on.
All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. Until next time, peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast. We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.